The hour of 6 o'clock has come and gone. The hour is now 6:06 p.m. So I'd like to call to order tonight's special meeting with an executive session on today is Tuesday, August 11th. Roll call, please.
Member Carter.
Having technical difficulties, but she's here.
I heard her. I did. Member Demet.
Here, if you can hear me.
Yes, can. Member Patton.
Here.
Member Pulaski.
Here.
Member Fisher is here. Vice President Exum.
Here.
And President Hall.
Here. Sounds like we're all present. Just for the sake of clarity, Brenda is here in person, but she's having technical difficulties, but she can still hear the meeting going on. Okay, citizen statements. We have 3 this evening. One is a petition in the form of a petition. So I will start with the first one. Dear members of the Urbana School District Board of Education, I appreciate the intensive work that Dr. Ivory Tatum, other staff members, and community members have done the past several months to design a plan that includes in-person learning. Unfortunately, that plan is not safe at this time. The number of COVID-19 cases is still too high in Champaign County and will undoubtedly increase drastically when thousands of University of Illinois students and their families arrive soon from all over the country and the world. As a longtime teacher in Urbana schools, I respectfully request that you vote for a full remote start for the first quarter of this school year. This decision is in the best interest of our students, staff, families, and the Champaign-Urbana community as a whole. Starting in-person instruction in the proposed group sizes places nearly 200 or more people in every school district building each day. That is a risk we should not be taking. It is also a message to our families and to the community that we believe it's perfectly safe to interact with large groups of people during a pandemic. It might not be the intended message, but it is the implied message. While we can have plans that seem responsible and follow most of the Illinois Department of Public Health guidelines, we cannot truly control the spread of the virus in our schools. The proposed in-person program will inevitably contribute to further family and community spread. While many people recover from the virus, others do not. There are also long-term effects for some who do survive. No one wants the Urbana School District to contribute to traumatic health issues or deaths of students, staff members, family members, healthcare workers, and other community members by reopening too soon. At this time, in-person learning is not worth the risks we are creating for everyone who enters our buildings and everyone who lives with anyone who enters our buildings. Inevitably, some students and staff members will unknowingly contract and spread the virus in our schools, creating the need for sudden, frantic changes in plans for many students, families, and staff members, including having to quarantine for 14 days, possibly shutting down classes and/or entire schools. This has already happened in other states, and no matter how careful we are, it will most likely happen here too. Planning efforts would be much more wisely spent on truly preparing families and staff for remote learning. We need to reach out to our families to ensure all students have working Chromebooks and are able to connect to the internet, are prepared to meet with their teachers online, and are ready to complete paper and pencil activities that are provided for them. Teachers need a well thought out and defined approach to remote learning, and we need time to create comprehensive learning plans for our students. We can make remote learning more successful by focusing efforts on that plan instead of spending countless additional hours planning for in-person instruction that will most likely end abruptly and tragically with an outbreak in one or more schools. We all recognize the dangers of COVID-19 as evidenced by the very way the district's board meetings are being carried out. A few people in person in the boardroom and others meeting remotely to ensure their safety. Why then would anyone think it's okay to expect students and staff members to sacrifice their safety by forcing them to begin meeting in person in just a few weeks? In conclusion, I leave you with this thought. We get one chance to make the responsible and safe choice in this situation. Please err on the side of caution for the health and safety of all students, families, and staff members, and begin the school year with remote learning only, at least for the first quarter. We can reevaluate the situation in October and adjust accordingly. Many other Illinois school districts with similar demographics have already chosen a remote-only plan, so why don't we follow suit and keep our students and staff safe too? We can always make up for a few months of lost in-person time, learning time. We cannot make up for long-term health issues or deaths caused by beginning in-person learning too soon. Thank you for all that you do for all of us and for seriously listening to, acknowledging, and considering our concerns. Sincerely, Carla Vincent Westfield. Second letter is To the members of the Urbana School District Board of Education, I am a teacher in Urbana School District 116, and I want to urge you to vote for a full remote start for the 2021 school year, extending until Champaign County documents at least 14 days of 0 new COVID-19 cases. Frankly, I'm scared about school reopening in a few weeks. The news is filled with daily reports of surges in COVID-19 cases in areas all across the country, in places that have reopened too soon. I am scared not only for myself, but for my family as well. My parents are both in their 80s and are primary caregivers to my 54-year-old brother who has special needs. His disabilities prevent him from living on his own. When my parents are no longer able to care for my brother for whatever reason, that duty will fall upon me and my other brother, who also happens to be a teacher. His school, which is in North Carolina, also plans on reopening this month. He is seriously considering resigning from his tenured position out of fears for his own health and the responsibility he shares with myself for eventually becoming caregiver to our youngest brother. I too am giving serious thought to resigning from the teaching position I have held for 15 years. I've kept myself safe since schools closed back in March. I only leave the house for essential shopping. I have avoided all places with large numbers of people, including church. I'm fearful that the safe distancing that I've practiced all summer long will be for naught if we reopen the schools this month. Please, I urge you to vote for a remote learning start to the 2021 school year. I fully support high quality teaching and learning opportunities for the children in our school district, but at this point, public health and safety should be our #1 priority. Sincerely, Joseph Carney, literacy interventionist at Martin Luther King Jr. Elementary School. And lastly, I have a petition here that is signed by many, many people, so I will read the petition and then summarize the signatories. Dear Board, members of USD 116 staff, families, and broader members of the community collaborated to create and circulate a petition asking the district to revise the reopening plan for a fully remote start until the end of first quarter. In addition, the petition asked for clearly defined criteria for reopening, that students be assigned to teachers at their home schools, and that the district focus the remaining time before school starts on online teacher training and resources. The petition circulated for less than 4 days and had the following response. As of the writing of this email, the total number of signatures was 414. Of that 414, 117 were USD 116 teachers and staff, 160 were USD 116 parents, 113 community members, 3 students, and 21 others. And the list is very long, but there are lots of familiar names on here. And if I read them all, I think I would probably take up the rest of the hour. So please, I appreciate the receiving it, and thank you for writing. Are there, now that citizen statements are finished, do we have any additions, corrections, or modifications of tonight's agenda? Nope, doesn't look like it. Okay. There is a call for an executive session after this current meeting tonight. For the purpose of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. With that said, I need approval of tonight's agenda, please. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. May I have roll call, please?
Sorry, I had to set that off. Member Carter? Yes. Okay. Yeah, I did hear her in the background. Member Demmett?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Hall?
Yes. Right, on to our administrative reports. And the very first one we've all been waiting for is the Phase 4 Back to School Plan Update. And I will let Dr. Ivory Tatum take over with the presentation.
Okay.
And everybody who's not speaking, please mute yourselves. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So I am going to start. I know we had discussion last week about, gosh, that was last week. It feels like last month. Last week about looking at Labor Day as a potential return to in-person. And since that time, we've gotten a lot more feedback as Anne read the petition, but we've also been monitoring numbers. We have had to put our contact tracing tools into play here and recently for one or two positive cases that we dealt with here in the district. And we have worked with many staff on child care concerns and just other medical needs. Our HR department has been really busy. So based on all of that, I'm going to share my screen here and make sure others can as well. Can everybody see that? Is that the right screen? Yes, I'm looking, yes. Okay, so based on that, we are going to change our recommendation. I know I feel like we've just been in flux, but you know, COVID is doing its own thing in the community, and it's out of our control at this point. So we're changing our recommendation, and from Labor Day, just due to recent events in the last week, that we are recommending that we stay all remote. Due to the high number of positive transmissions in our community, and I have some numbers I can share with you if you've not been keeping up with those, but I'm sure you have. Specifically in our young people, just in the last few days, I've heard of several young people in our community who have tested positive, who are asymptomatic. And again, I think our community, we did so well for so long, which is one of the reasons why I think we were very hopeful as we were planning all summer that we would have some in-person time with students, even if it was just a small amount to get them acclimated to a remote learning environment at the beginning of the year. But those numbers have changed, and our situation in Champaign County has changed very quickly, and something we could not predict. So based on the high numbers of positive transmissions, and I can show you, so just today, our recent cases, we're up to 31, and we've seen some ebbs and flows where we've seen high numbers and the numbers drop a little bit and get high again. But this 33 is a high number for our area, and I know for a fact that this number includes some youth and young people. So those are numbers that I look at every day, and you know, I use I don't know how many of you are using the CU Public Health website. It just kind of like stopped on me there. There it goes. So this is a great resource too that I look at almost daily. And you can see our cases here for young people and children 10 and under, and we look at this number here a lot. That's 11 to 20 number. And I don't know how many of you saw the article yesterday in the News Gazette. The U of I has been sharing more information about the shield testing and the saliva testing. And so I stay encouraged that based on that information, we will be able to work with UIUC in the coming weeks and months as we stay remote, and hopefully throughout this first quarter, you know, if we're able to return to in-person at some point, then we will have a solid plan on what and how and when, and you know, what the structures and systems will be put in place for us to be able to join that effort, not just with for the school district, but for our community. And then again, the need to support our staff. As I said earlier, Angie and I talked to many staff. Our HR department has been working with people. And I think, you know, the fact that Unit 4, as someone mentioned in one of the citizen statements, has made this decision, it impacts us. It impacts us greatly. As Chancellor Jones said, you know, in meetings I've been in with him, you know, there isn't an imaginary wall around the U of I, whether isn't an imaginary wall around Champaign either. Just looking at our data, we have over 300 of our staff members who live in Champaign. I don't know how many of those people have children who would attend Unit 4 school district, but that is the potential, that just creates a potential for a lot of additional people, not only our own staff who are struggling with childcare needs, but also our USD 116 family who do not live in who don't live right here in Urbana, but they're Champaign residents, so they're impacted by this as well. So looking at all of these factors, I just think it's the responsible decision for us to make at this point. I still value all the hard work that our committees and the countless people have put in to develop, and I am just going to say, a very high quality, safe plan. All of that work is still going to be put into place. All the work that our facilities teams have done to prepare classrooms. We will get back into our school buildings at some point. And so all the work that we've done will still be necessary when all of this is over and we're able to come back in person. So I want everybody who spent all the hours and hours and hours and hours this summer talking about safety and PPE and remote learning and, apps and devices. All of that was really valuable, and that will save us a lot of time when we come back to the table, based on what the board decides this evening. When we come back to the table and say, okay, we are ready to go to phase 5, what's our plan? Well, Urbana has a plan, and we will be in a good place because of all of the work that people have already done on the front end to make sure that we're ready when that time comes. So that's our administrative recommendation. The end of our quarter is October 16th. We have spent the last few days really talking to a lot of our stakeholders across all levels around what is remote learning really what is that going to mean for us? I know we've had some initial conversations through our committees. We've received a lot of questions from families around, what does this mean to stay all remote, and how are we going to make sure that we're making it equitable for everybody. So I do want to share, I'm not going to walk you through another huge document because we've already done that. But we have put together a plan specifically around remote learning and what that means for us to not be face-to-face for 9 weeks or so is what that'll pan out to be. So I'm going to walk through this. If you have questions as I'm going to go quickly. The board members, I just shared this with you, and we will make this public as soon as the meeting is over. And when we enter in the exec session, we'll send this document out. We'll put it on our website. We'll share it with staff, but we wanted, of course, board members to see it first because there may be things in here that you want us to add or tweak or take out. So I'll do that now. Questions before I kind of start the walking through here? Okay.
Sorry,
and John,
it took me a bit to get my mic turned on.
Yes, I was just going to say, I know you weren't here last week, John, so you may have some specific questions as we go through.
No questions, just a comment. I really want to echo that when I left town, there were, I believe, 2 or 3 active cases in 61801 and 4 or 5 in 61802. And when I come back, those numbers have increased dramatically in both zip codes, but even more dramatically in 61802. And so I do want to echo the thanks that you gave to everybody that pushed through this, because early in the summer it looked like it was going to be possible to return to face because of the low counts on our cases. So maybe the other board members had a chance last meeting, but I wanted to echo the thanks for all the extreme work that you've done. The leadership that 116 showed some of the other surrounding districts and how to do a blended approach had we been able to do that. A lot of people eventually migrated into something that looked pretty similar to what we originally proposed. So just that, and then I'll let you go into the specifics. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to let board member Carter in. She's ready. Okay. Thank you, John. I appreciate that. And I hope all the committee members listening, I know they appreciate it too, because they really did work tirelessly on this. Okay, so this document really is just kind of reminding parents around what does remote learning mean? I know we've talked about the fact that we're required to have those 5 calendar hours, 5 clock hours of instruction in order to have a student attendance day for our calendar. I do want to stress this, this information right here, and it is on the we did send an FAQ out right prior to the board meeting, so hopefully families have that and staff. This was a big concern for some of our families who were really interested in the all remote option. So because we are staying, the whole district is staying fully remote, students will start the school year with their regularly assigned teachers. We will not be using our AB schedule. There's no need to enter into the AB schedule right now. The AB schedule was designed for in-person learning. But because we are staying fully remote, all students will just stay with their regular classroom teachers. And the middle school and high school students will stay on their teams, and we will still have some changes in the schedules, but the people providing the instruction will continue to be USD 116 staff. We will still honor all of the requests that we're taking, and if you still would like to send in your full-time remote only learning request form, those can still go to Kim Norton. The deadline is Friday. We'll still accept those, but just know that we won't be putting students into those remote only cohorts, and staff who we're approving for medical exemptions and some of the FMLA things that we're approving now, those won't be won't need to be acted upon until we go into in-person learning. I just wanted to say that to start, because I know there's been a lot of just concern around students not being with their regular teachers, students being in different groups, instruction being provided by teachers that were not possibly from that particular school. That won't be something that we'll need to address right now. Whenever we go back to in-person learning, yes, that will be something that we will notify families, we'll work with families, we'll work with those teachers who are not able to come in person. And we'll put together, again, a high quality transition into that. But as for right now, I just want to reiterate it again. We will not be using the AB, A through K, L through M schedules at this time. Students will be with their regular classroom teachers. Questions about that before I go on? Because I know that has been a big concern shared with board members. I know you've received lots of questions about that, so I just want to make sure that is crystal clear before we go further. Okay, we've also talked about the fact that there is a new component to remote learning this go around. Not only did we as a district realize that we needed to incorporate more rigor and more instruction teaching through remote learning, ISBE made it a requirement. So we're required to offer the 2.5 hours of real-time instruction. And we're going to do that through a variety of ways. It won't just be a teacher standing up and, students being plugged in completely for 2.5 hours of continuous lecture or live stream instruction. But we have a continuum and that we're going to use and give teachers lots of options on ways that they can do that. But we will be required to provide interaction that includes feedback, interaction student to student, interaction student to teacher, as a huge part of the new remote learning mandates that we're required to follow. This whole little section right here, I'm not going to belabor it because it includes a whole lot of legalese from our lawyers around the fact that we do know that using things like Zoom and other virtual platforms do create a potential privacy risk, but we're going to make sure that we train our teachers and make sure that they know how to take measures during Zooms and during some of those other virtual platforms to maintain student confidentiality. I'm going to kind of skip through that. So accesses to devices and internet. I know this is a big concern of mine. I think this is one of the reasons why we were trying to be in person as much as we can, because we know that there's a large group of our students who will struggle with this component. And I know we've been putting devices in the hands of kids, and we're going to continue to support with internet, but there's still the issue of students having someone available to them in their homes to help them with technical support and technical issues when they're not at school. So today we had another Chromebook distribution day. We have another one tomorrow. Following today and tomorrow, we will reevaluate. We have had specific questions come in to our Chromebook email there. We encourage families to continue if you have a special situation. Right now, I know we have people who have multiple children. So because we've registered a lot of new families today and tomorrow, today was really trying to get Chromebooks in the hands of people who don't have one at all. So if you're a new family member, you did not have a device, we asked you to come today. Tomorrow, we're asking families who have multiple children to come tomorrow if you need more than one device. So we are going to kind of try to support people one-on-one or individually based on whatever your needs might be with a Chromebook in your home. Now, we know Chromebooks are not enough, right? I mean, we can give a Chromebook to all 4,000 of our students, but if they don't have internet connectivity and the ability to be on a high quality internet system, that's not going to matter. So this summer, I've mentioned this before, our parent liaisons worked very hard to call families. We have a Chromebook list that we've been working through all summer. We signed many families up for free internet or the really low cost internet in our community. And so we are going to continue to contact families and work with them, and our parent liaisons are going to be, doing that again, reaching back out to families to make sure that they have what they need. We do ask families to contact us or reach back out to your liaison, use the email for the Chromebook help, and we will work with you on to get you what you need. We're going to employ the Wi-Fi buses. We did not get to use those this spring. So we have equipment to be able to use 8 of our buses as Wi-Fi buses. So we are going to work with First Student on that. We don't have, where the buses are going to be and what that plan is going to look like, because we want to coordinate those efforts with meal distribution. So we're still working through what meal distribution is going to look like. We're waiting for hopefully some loosening requirements around how we can track the lunches. This summer, it was so easy for us to be able to, anyone who drove up, we could give them a lunch and a breakfast. But as we enter the school year, all those rules change. And we have to account for every single student we give a breakfast and a lunch to, and what school they're from. So it is going to be a bit more of a process. So we're going to try to link that whole Wi-Fi bus and the meal distributions together and try to get those buses out into the neighborhoods to provide some connectivity as well. So our buildings, we've also talked about, and I hope, I'm going to unshare here for a minute because I want to share a picture. So sorry, I'm pausing here. Let me get this picture up. We are really hoping to be able to, and again, we want board feedback on this. We ran this idea past our administrators on Friday during our administrative PD, and our administrators are on board with this. We've met with our elementary principals and tried to talk through details. So one thing that we would like to do is we're calling these, can everybody see that? That's a picture of the middle school gym. Okay, so this was a picture from new parent registration. And this is set up, for adults, of course, and we spaced people out way more than 6 feet, but, we kind of went above and beyond for safety purposes. So we're envisioning that we would like, with some input from you guys, to be able to open our middle school gym. I'll work with the high school on a space that they prefer to do this at the high school, and offer these spaces during synchronous learning. So all of our schools right now have synchronous learning blocks for that 2.5 hour requirement. So at our elementary level, I think everybody's seen the picture. I can leave the picture now. let me go back to the plan. Okay. So right now, I'll go back, I can show you that in a second. So right now, the 2.5 hours, we heard the comments from the spring surveys and the summer surveys from families. There was a lot of overlap around, you know, my high school student needed to be on the Chromebook at the same time my elementary student needed to be on the Chromebook. So we've alleviated that problem by creating these synchronous learning blocks. So I can show you that on the FAQ. So this is the FAQ. We'll come back to this. But if you can see, here's the block times for the synchronous learning. So elementary students will have their synchronous learning block from 8:30 to 11. Middle school students, their synchronous learning block is, well, I'll do high school next. High school is 10:30 to 1 and middle school 1 to 3:30 because our middle school starts and ends later than these other two campuses. So what that means is that is the 2.5 hour block where students and families will need to be logged in more. There'll be more live streaming. There'll be more interactive activities, more feedback and back and forth between teacher, student, student to student. So that is a time where we felt like for our young people and our families who we have students who will need technical support. We have students who just will want to come to a safe place to do their work. So we like to use those gym spaces, that picture I just showed you of a way to, we're calling them kind of like computer lab hubs, where we'll just have tables set up, spread out all over. We have substitutes, our long-term building-based subs who are coming back, who we can use in those spaces as a support. We'll have TAs available that are coming back, that were willing to come back for in-person learning, where we can provide some academic and technical support during those synchronous learning blocks. So that 8:30 to 11 at elementary, 10:30 to 1 at the high school, and 1 to 3:30 at the middle school. And again, we're all about safety. So prior to any student coming in, we will still be doing our same protocols, right? We're still going to check temperatures. We're still going to expect everybody who comes in to have their face covering on. We are going to ask parents and guardians to complete a self-certification form prior to those students coming in for the to take advantage of these spaces. We right now we're working with Skyward to see if we can finalize, hopefully we can get it up and going by the time we need this synchronous learning, where families can go in through Skyward and complete the self-certification through their family access. So a student, they can go into the app, they can say, my student is not experiencing any of these symptoms, we haven't been exposed or around anyone that has tested positive for COVID, that they are safe to come to our school to take advantage of this opportunity. And again, I think it's important to know, if it isn't, if we can't have our regular school environment because of all the other risks and, there's just a lot of other, reasons why we can't have full 500, 600 students in a building at one time, we can have 30 or 40 students spread out in a huge space like this, working on their devices. I think we can do this safely, but again, I would like to hear feedback from you. Students who choose to participate in this, we would ask that you go to your home school. So at the elementary level, we had a meeting with the elementary principals yesterday, and so we want to continue to have a little more conversation with elementary, but right now we're thinking that 2.5 hours to come to a school site is not developmentally appropriate for very young children. So this would not be something we would offer to kindergarten, first grade, probably not even second grade, but for our older elementary students, we think they can handle this. And we'll continue to have that conversation with them. We're going to talk about that tomorrow with the remote learning committee. UMS and UHS students should be able to use their current student ID passes to ride back and forth to come to this space for their synchronous learning blocks. And we'll work through transportation needs for those older elementary students that might take advantage of this. questions about this while I'm on it, or do you want to hold it to the end? I know I'm sure there are some.
This is Peggy. So Jennifer, we're saying older elementary students would go to their computer hub at their elementary building?
Yes.
Okay. And then
and that's our preference, because we feel that the staff in those spaces know those children and would be better people to help them with you know, with the academic or the technical needs that they might have while they're in those spaces. So yes.
And so my second question is, how will we deal with if we have more families or students who are interested than the 30 or 40 student capacity at these hubs? I mean, is that likely to happen?
Well, we're allowed to have 50 people based on phase 4 guidelines, allow us to have 50 people in a space. And I can go back to that picture. So this picture, the way we had it set up would have accommodated, you know, 50 people in the gym, and we had people counting. So we didn't let people in until other people went out. But yeah, I think we would, Peggy, I'm not quite sure how many people would take advantage of it. I think we just want to try it and see. You know, we may only have, because of the, you know, numbers on the rise right now, we may have very few people who take advantage of this, or we may have, you know, 30 or 40 students who come. But I don't know that we can guess until we try it. But so yeah.
So families would have to sign up and let you know in advance if this is their intention. So you know.
Okay. Yes. So we would know who's coming based on them completing the self-certification form as well.
Great.
If you had overwhelming response, I mean, could you open up multi-purpose rooms or individual classrooms as overflow space?
Yes, I think we could. We could use, at the middle school, we could use the cafetorium. At the high school, we could surely find another space. The elementaries will be a little trickier, because we don't want to start putting kids in classrooms, right? Because then we're defeating the purpose of us not being in school. So we want to use the gym spaces at the elementaries, and we could use the multi-purpose room space in the elementaries that have been remodeled. But we want to start with the gyms first, because we can spread out even more.
I have a
So
question.
who's going to be manning these locations? Like
So we have building-based subs who every school has a one or two. The secondary buildings have 3 or more, who are everyday subs who report to those buildings every day, and many of them were planning to return to work. So we would use those because those are certified teachers. We will have TAs in those spaces as well, and you know, we have some other support staff who could also be available. But again, the mandate is we have to stay under 50 for the whole room, and that includes adults and kids. So we don't want to have, you know, 10, 15 adults walking around here, because that'll limit the number of kids that we can have in those spaces. Somebody else had a question while Tori was it Brenda maybe? Or?
No, it was me. She got to my question before.
Okay.
I was going to ask the same exact thing. Where were the adults going to be coming from virtually? So that's been answered.
And I can't remember, Angie might know offhand, but we had a lot of, we had a work fair last week, and I think that was something we shared with the board around. We were hoping we would get a large number of substitutes to help us with our problem of, our staff limitations that we were expecting. And we only had 10 people come to the work fair last week. The job fair, sorry. So, that we thought we might have more subs with, so many people looking for work and with all the unemployment issues out there, but we had 10 show up. I think, Angie, do we have 55 substitutes who wanted to come back to work full time? Is that right?
We had 55 subs that worked last year, but out of those 55, when I tracked about how many were working full time, I would say we have about 40. But we have staff members that we need to find, different work for, such as our lunchroom supervisors, our before school and after school staff. So there are plenty of opportunities for our staff members to find work in this type of setting, to be able to provide a service to our students and families, and also provide a service to our staff members. And so we just have to get kind of a head count of seeing how many people are interested in utilizing this service in a safe manner.
So Jennifer,
I-
would you say this is kind of, is it more like a computer lab kind of concept? And so that person that's kind of manning this would be responsible for going around to help the students, or can you just kind of explain that
Yes.
part?
So we're thinking there might be, and I guess I'm going to just be really honest. I think some of our parents and the ability to help students with technology, there are, I think, some situations where there might be some limitations there on how much support a student might be able to get at home. So this would be a space where they could receive some technical support, like I can't log in, I'm having issues, or it might just be I mean, you know, I know we have some families that have many students and a lot going on in their homes. And so a middle school kid or a high school kid might just want to come here, plug in, put on their headphones, and engage with their teacher and do their work in a nice, quiet, controlled space where an adult is there to help them if they have questions or help them log in, or if their computer freezes up, what do I do? So that's kind of how we're envisioning the space would work. This is not a space for the classroom teachers, however, because remember, the classroom teachers are going to be delivering the synchronous learning. So they can't be in these spaces. And again, you know, it isn't set up for that. It's just set up for a place that a young person can come and work and get support if they need it. Did that answer your question, Tori?
It does. I'm just trying to envision, you know, the number of kids that probably will need help and how many people we would be able to staff, the social distancing piece. It's just kind of all going through my head on how this could work.
Yep. And I think I guess we'll have to see that too. Like Paul said, you know, if we see that we have a lot of students who come and need this space to be able to get their 2.5 hours of synchronous work done, then, you know, we can open up another space. But again, staffing is going to be the issue, because one of the reasons why we're recommending that we can't return full force in person is because we are going to be experiencing some limitations on staff. So like Angie said, I think we have some subs who were committed to returning in person. We have teaching assistants who are committed to returning in person. So it'll just be a matter of connecting and making sure that those people who are willing to be there and able are in those spaces for those blocks of times for kids. So at elementary from 8:30 to 11, we want to make sure we have some trusted adults who can be in those spaces so the elementary people see familiar faces. Middle school, same thing. High school, same thing.
If others had their questions, I want to thank you for thinking of this type of approach. My biggest fear is that what little progress we've made towards closing achievement gaps is all going to evaporate very rapidly without support to the right student, you know, to the students that need it. And so I appreciate this opportunity that we're providing to at least catch some of the needs. I don't think we're going to catch all the needs. I think we already from experience know that about 20% of our students kind of checked out last March and have been checked out, and I hope we can get them checked back in this fall. But that's my biggest worry. So I know you've got a lot more to present, so maybe there's some more factors that are going to be presented that show other ways that we're going to be able to keep all of our students engaged and learning. I'm real fearful that we're creating permanent, very close to permanent gaps that are going to be stay with elementary kids all through school, or cause some kids to leave our school system with shortfalls.
So John, you lead me to something I was going to talk about later, but I'll just do it right now. So this is on the FAQ that went out just a little while ago. I think I mentioned this last week, maybe not, but what we're going to do for that, those 3 days and those first couple of days of school is really try to make a personal connection with every single student, and hopefully all families. So specifically at the elementary level, because we are very concerned about the fact that our youngest students won't know how to log in. Parents won't know how to get to the virtual platforms. They won't understand what synchronous learning is going to be about. So we're earmarking the 24th and the 25th as days that teachers can have one-on-one virtual. These would not be like face-to-face conferences, but we'll set up virtual meetings where a teacher or a team of teachers can walk through a family, give them their logins and passwords, because that's something else that we usually do all of that face-to-face. So now we have to do all of that virtually, right? And get them that information, but also show them how to use it. So we'll have small group sessions. At the high school, teachers will reach out to students from their first hour class. So we'll make sure that every single student remembers what their login is, knows how to get into the platform, knows where everything will be housed. And this will be our time, John, that will reinforce the families that this is different than what they did in March, April, and May. That their attendance is going to be taken, and people are going to be calling you if your kid doesn't, if we did that last time, we checked in with families, but we're going to be much more aggressive around. If we don't hear from a student for a day or two, then we're going to be calling and saying, where are you? We haven't seen you. And it might not be teachers only doing that. I mean, we've got student engagement advocates who can help with that. Teaching assistants who have connections with kids who can help make phone calls. I think it is just going to be a team effort where when we know of kids who are checked out or aren't cracking that Chromebook open for whatever reason, we are going to be on them. Finding out what can we do, what do you need, how can we help you, to make sure that everybody is engaging. Because you're right, we had it wasn't a huge group of students, but there were quite a few who didn't engage this spring, and we can't have that, because we're introducing new content this time around. We're giving grades, we're taking attendance. We're expected to have school, but have it remotely. So all the things that we normally would do, we're going to do that. And so I just wanted to point that out too, that the pre-K through 5 are going to have more intentional personal connections with families to make sure that they understand what this is going to look like for them.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Well, that was a good segue to that. I was going to talk about that anyway. So we're using a new online learning portal. I know I mentioned this last week too. A lot of our families gave, and staff, I've heard this from staff too, we were using some great resources, but it was too much and overwhelming for our families. So right now we're going to be implementing Clever, and it is more of a kind of a data management portal that kind of houses everything. I heard a great analogy this afternoon that Clever is kind of the backpack that all the other apps and things that the teachers use go inside. So there is an expectation at the upper grades for using Google Classroom. We're also using Seesaw at the younger grades, which is something pre-K, K, and 1. There are a lot of really family-friendly and much more developmentally appropriate activities in those platforms and systems for our students. So again, that is something that our teachers will send these. We're sharing these links really soon. I just wanted to share them with you guys, and then we're going to be pushing these out. We've created a parent tech hub, so I'll just show you that really quickly. So this is more information, and probably more than some of our parents want right now, but we're trying to get as many resources into the hands of our families and our teachers in the next 2 weeks as we possibly can. So there are a lot of links in this document that families and staff can start going through and exploring, and then we'll be providing more in the coming days. So I'm going to stop talking here for a minute, and we're not going to walk you through these schedules like, hour by hour, but we just wanted to kind of visually show you what some of the synchronous schedules look like. So Kim.
Okay, so Urbana Early Childhood will be broken down into some smaller chunks for their remote time. So that'll start off with 20-minute blocks with the classroom teacher, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday in the morning session and afternoon. And then on Wednesdays, there'll be 20-minute chunks for SEL and community building. Tuesdays and Thursdays, there'll be some live classroom circles. And then Mondays and Fridays, there'll be an opportunity for family sessions from 10 to 10:20 and 2:30 to 2:50 in the afternoon.
What grade did you decide you want to do second? Or we're not going to do all the grades, so.
Yeah, they're very close. The differences you will see in kindergarten and first grade contains phonemic awareness and handwriting without tears. And then those components, we don't have those in second and fifth. Those are applicable to K1. But you'll see on the side of the schedules, you'll see for second grade here, you'll see the instructional components. So we have all the instructional components there, starting with morning meeting and second step. We intentionally didn't put time on there in the beginning. We're going to have to assess the needs of our students to how much time we'll be spending there. But you'll see small chunks of time for student attention spans, 10 minutes for read aloud, 30 minutes for balanced literacy, 30 minutes for math instruction, 20 minutes of fine arts 2 days a week, 30 minutes of PE 1 day a week. So there can be some brain breaks and things. So this still can occur in Zoom by having our fine arts or PE teacher join the Zoom classrooms. And then 30 minutes of library a week. That could be a read aloud, 10 minutes of writing instruction. There'll be some class meeting time. And something that we added to this schedule was time at the end of the day for independent work, but it's also an opportunity to provide supports. That could be literacy interventions or special education supports and social work. So there's just some times that students can get those support services. At Urbana Middle School, their times will be 1 to 3:30. And so Mondays and Thursdays, students will go through half of their schedule, periods 1, 2, and 3. And then Tuesdays and Fridays, they'll be going through their other half for fourth period, fifth period. And then there'll be some time at the end of the day for office hours with their teachers where they can get more support. And then Wednesdays, UMS is devoting specific set aside time for social emotional learning, and that's broken down by grade level. Similar format for UHS, and they'll have Mondays and Tuesdays where students will go through half their schedule, and then Thursdays and Fridays half of their schedule, and then Wednesday they will be going through their complete whole schedule period after period.
And again, if you note, this is just a synchronous time. So I probably should have said that going in. So the rest of the students' day, they'll have activities that are asynchronous that they can do they don't have to be logged in at the same time. They can, they might have a reading response that they can complete, or, an activity or a slideshow that they're supposed to be working on independently on their own. So these schedules reflect the time that we're expecting kids to be plugged in and available for these synchronous blocks.
So is there some reason why the class periods aren't in order on Mondays and or is it just the way it worked out? Is there some science behind it?
You mean at the high school?
Yeah,
So
4, 2, 3, 6 instead of 1, 2, 3, 4.
So the reason they did it this way for the high school was because of the lunches. We'd already shared the high school schedules way back in the spring, and they didn't want to redo everybody's schedules because that would have just been a complete nightmare to try to redo that at this point. And so this was they put the 4th and 5th period, I believe, are the freshmen and sophomores. And so because of the lunches, that's just the way they broke it out. 6th period and 6th period are the upper class lunches. So that's why that one is at the end of the day.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can I have a quick question? How would a class like driver's ed work? I'm just kind of.
Yep. So I have driver's ed on here. So close your eyes until I get there. Okay. Okay, so driver's ed will be instructed during remote learning. All the classroom hours will be virtual, so that the teachers will still send the lessons virtually, and there'll be videos that the students will have to watch, and kind of what do they call it, simulations and things like that. But the behind the wheel times, we still have been approved by the state to continue with behind the wheel. They've not closed us down for that yet. In the phase 4 plan, I had all the, in the bigger document, we've got all the safety things about what they have to do. But that families will still be scheduling their behind the wheel time with the behind the wheel instructors from the high school. But the learning part will still happen virtually. Okay.
And that'll be really important. And Dr. Ivory Tatum may touch on this later, but that attendance piece is really important. And if just like if a student would be absent from school, we're asking families to call the school and talk to the attendance secretary if they cannot participate in those. But we know that there's special considerations, or we'll be providing those if those are videoed as well. But that attendance time and that interaction with the teacher is very, very important.
And that is right under the adult ed. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that, since you were talking about attendance, Kim, it's right there. But you basically said it all. So
yeah, we can pull reports from Zoom from the time that students are logged in. And so that can be part of attendance as well. Now, grading, attendance is not part of grading, and we'll go over that a little bit. Oh, it's next.
Yep.
But we will be resuming standards-based grading and traditional grading. And so that no harm that we had back in the spring, that's the thing of the past. Students will have opportunities to redo or retake assignments, but we do have a time frame within 1 week. Rigor is really important with this plan, and we want to make sure that we provide students with the time frame to get their work completed.
Going back to the attendance piece really quickly, if I have a student who ends up late for a class, it gets marked, and then Skyward sends me a text message or something, right? Is that still going to be the case here?
So we'll be marking that at the end of the day, so that we won't have any panic. It would take place at the end of the day.
Kim, can I ask you how lab classes, like AP Chemistry and AP Physics, will be handled with the all remote option?
Yes, we have a portion in our that's a very good question. We have that portion in our frequently asked questions for both CTE and our chemistry and physics. So all courses, college prep and AP, will be taught as if they were in person. They'll be looking different during the remote period. They'll have simulations, they'll have videos. Our goal is to keep that rigorous approach and all of our courses with the understanding that it is going to be different during this time. But we've been so pleased as we've been getting input from our teachers of some of the different methods that they're going to be doing, so that we can still offer all of our courses.
Great, thank you.
And Peggy, on this FAQ, there's a link the CTE team put together, fax and welding, and they, like Kim said, they've come up with some really creative ideas on how they're going to do this. So they have a link here. I know this doesn't give people all the answers that they want about chemistry and physics, but again, I think our teachers are trying to figure that out, Peggy. But a lot of the learning pieces will still happen via the virtual platform. They're really trying to figure out what that lab component will look like. while we're talking about these, we might as well just answer these, Kim. We've gotten a lot of questions about music and band and orchestra and choir. So we've touched base with a lot of those staff members, and they too have some creative ways on how they're going to incorporate music theory, a lot of videos, a lot of, I think they will be sending out like the ensemble pieces and working with students individually, like the choral students on learning their ensemble pieces individually. I know Zoom is a challenge trying to get everybody singing at the same time. So I think Ms. Park is thinking there would be some individual components to that. So we've talked with, orchestra, band, choir, and I feel like they have a really good plan of what they're going to do. Again, it's not ideal to be trying to, have music classes that won't be playing together musically, but I feel like our teachers have a good plan for that. We've received a lot of questions about marching band. So yes, marching band will still, we just finished band camp, and I feel like they did a really good job of, making sure students were wearing their masks and socially distancing. So the marching band will still instruct outside so they can, spread out like they did during band camp. When we return to in-person instruction, though, during the all remote learning piece, the Monday night rehearsals will happen at 6:30 from 6:30 to 8:30. Students will be receiving a lot of their drills and animations digitally, so they can have that information to utilize at home and practice at home for when they're not in person or when they're not together outside. I think those have been the major areas that we've heard about, specific class areas. Okay, I will go back. Oh, adult ed, I didn't want to leave them out. So I can talk to this one, Kim, unless you want to. So I think right now adult ed is planning to have several groups, and they're offering those same components that we're offering remotely. So they have an A, B, C, D, E, F group, and they've set aside office hours times for each group. And these are small groups that will connect with their teachers. They are opening their lab, similar to what we're doing, and making sure that students can come in and have a place that they can complete their work in the lab setting. Right now, they, and I cannot remember, Shauna's going to kill me, but I can't remember the name of the governing group that requires them to do the testing, that they get their IC, I can't remember, I'm not going to try to guess. But there is a testing component related to the adult ed curriculum, and that has not been waived for them yet. So they are going to still be required to complete or satisfy their funding and fiscal agents that they do those assessments. So those assessments will still happen in the boardroom, and students will still have to come in person and do those here in person. And they, we've been working with them on safety precautions. So I think it's the college board, community college board, maybe that has that requirement for them. So we've been working with them, making sure they have what they need in regard to sanitizer and able to clean their spaces as well, because they will have an in-person component that I don't think they're going to not be able to provide. But I did want to show you an adult ed schedule as well. And this is tentative, so it could change, I think, based on who signs up and how many students they have. They're not quite sure, I think, right now, how many will want to come on site for some of this, but they just wanted to make sure they had a plan for their students that mirrored what the district was providing. I know there was questions about adult ed last time, so Paul, does this... I don't think I answered your question last week very well, but hopefully
this helps a lot. I just wanted to see it. That's all.
Nope,
So
I
appreciate.
just wanted to make sure I had it in there. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So attendance, grading. I don't know, Todd, do you want to add anything? I know we don't want to read to you guys tonight because we have a long evening still ahead of us, but there is We have some teams working on remote plans for our students with IEPs, 504s. Do you want to add anything to this, Todd, or just maybe summarize it since it's a lot of text?
Yeah, so basically early in the school year, and especially since we are going for more of an extended all remote learning option for everyone, our special education teams headed up by our special ed teachers, case managers will be reaching out to parents early in the school year to collaborate about the development of remote learning plans. That'll be derived from the student's individualized education plan and outline the services and supports that the student receives while they are receiving instruction during remote learning. In addition, our 504 plan case managers will be reaching out to parents to collaborate with teachers and parents early in the school year to make any necessary adjustments. So the name of the game this year is going to be collaboration communication to help meet student need.
Okay. Kim, do you want to add anything about EL?
So what's nice about, I was going to talk about dual language. Just with EL, we are prioritizing upon return emergent bilinguals, but they're going to have same opportunities and provide support during their remote period as well.
And we are trying to plan some creative ways that we can still incorporate our literacy specialists into the remote learning options. You know, we've been investigating things like, you know, where we can have our literacy specialists be in breakout rooms with teachers to help break into small groups and do some literacy, kind of almost like a balanced literacy lessons. I don't know, Kim, if you want to talk on that a little bit, because
we have talked about that. So instruction will occur whole group, small group, incorporating ways to assess students even by having them do when we do running records with having students reading to the teacher. So we'll be incorporating and investigating further just some ways that we can do those, and we've as adults during some of our PD sessions have had large groups, and then we've had smaller groups that break out into a smaller one with the same Zoom link. So those are some things that we will be incorporating so that we can take advantage of all of our specialists.
And we've had several questions about athletics. So I think that this is in the larger phase 4 plan, but I put it here because I know we've still received a lot of questions if athletics will still happen while we're all remote. And it will. I mean, right now we're still following all the IHSA, IESA guidelines. You know, that could change at any minute, right? And that's kind of also been an up and down roller coaster for us. So right now, the lower risk sports are happening at both levels. As of August 10th, we started cross country, girls tennis, girls swim, dive, and golf. And same for UMS. So as long as we're able to, softball, baseball, cross country. So as long as the governor's office and IHSA, IESA say we're able to offer those in a remote environment, we will. It is, again, up to the families if they participate, and students will not be penalized if they choose not to. We're following all the same safety protocols and wellness screenings and symptoms checks and all the things that we've talked about before. So these are just some collective, this is clubs. We've talked about clubs before. We've had some questions even just today and yesterday about clubs. Clubs can still meet, and we'll encourage clubs to, you know, they can do activities outside or but we won't be able to offer those big performances right now. I know that is, John's going to not like that, but you know, the drama club can still get together and, you know, create videos and do some of those other, you know, socially distanced kind of activities, but they just won't be able to put on a full performance because we won't be able to have a large gathering for everyone to be able to come and view it. But you never know, our teachers and our students are so creative. We may get to see a theater production via Zoom. Who knows? I don't know. But we are saying that extracurricular and club activities, they will need to I work with building administrators because we want to make sure everybody is following all of the requirements for social distancing and face masks and everything. So the end of this document just really highlights some of the collective commitments that we've talked about around, you know, what teachers are going to commit to. I'm not going to read all these. People can read them on their own. What students will commit to, what parents and guardians will commit to, what our administrators are going to commit to make this work, and district administration. It is really going to be, it is going to have to, everybody is going to have to be all in order to support our students with the high quality remote learning curriculum and environment. I do want to go back to the FAQ just to make sure, because we've talked about Clever, we've talked about devices, we've gotten a lot of questions about school supplies. So that is on the FAQ. It's not in the bigger document, but it is here. The school supply lists have not changed. You know, I apologize we didn't have those up when people were really looking for them, but our focus was, you know, trying to figure out how we were going to come back to school safely, and we weren't quite sure how all of this was going to work out. And so now that we have a better idea of what our plan is, we did put the school supply lists up last week. They are on the website. UHS, we've gotten a lot of questions. UHS has never really had a school supply list. Those have always been given out by course specific teachers. We are hosting, we've had several school supply distributions, and we had another one last week where they're all just drive up, so we're not expecting people to get out and come in the building or anything. We will have another school supply distribution August 26th, 27th, 28th during the meal distribution times, which are 10 to noon. We'll try to have these throughout the school as long as we're remote. We want to make sure that we're getting school supplies in the hands of families that need them. So we'll offer another school supply distribution at the end of August. Schedules, we've had a lot of questions about schedules. UMS students, their schedules were Skyward Family Access was opened on Friday. So UMS families should be able to see their team assignments and schedules as of Friday. UHS students have had their schedules since April, and they will be the same, except there might be some very small changes, but we didn't want to you know, cause a panic here, but those will be really specific, and counselors will reach out to those individual students and families. So almost, you know, I don't want to give a percentage, but the majority of the high school students, their schedules will be exactly the same as they were in April. Elementary students and pre-K will be getting more information about who their classroom assignments. I know that it's always something that families look forward to. We don't want to get rid of all the exciting things to come back to school, right? So that letter and that notification about who your classroom teacher will be is still coming. And this is about, you know, the typical time for us to be letting families know that information. So that'll be coming out as well. We've talked about attendance. I think we've talked about all these other things. And this last question here is about that computer space, that connected safe space for students to be able to come in that we've already talked about. So I am going to stop. I think that is everything that's in this big plan. We will make this, we will put this out and share it for families that want some specific information or have specific questions. So I'm going to stop there and take questions.
Jennifer, I am getting some questions, and I just want to address for some of our families that are watching. So I'm thankful that they're watching and sharing questions if they have them. There's some confusion just about the remote learning forms that they've already completed. Those will be on hold until later for when we resume in person. Everyone will be remote for this first quarter, but we will reserve those forms until later. And then the other question that I'm getting is just about dual language, and dual language will start remote with their dual language teacher.
I have some questions, if it's okay. And this goes back to the staffing that you were talking about, finding places for special staff. Will you be using people for the before and after school program, or also what about student teachers? I don't know if anybody got assigned a student teaching classroom back in the spring thinking they were going to come back in the fall, but will those people be used to help with the kids?
So we had Dr. Zola and I have had meetings with the U of I, and when we originally weeks and weeks ago thought we might be in person, student teachers were already assigned to come here, and we have a nice group that we were expecting that they will participate remotely. In the springtime when we went into stay at home, student teachers were really actively involved in that. And so we're expecting that we're expecting them to still be involved. We've not heard otherwise. And then the first part of your question, remind me again, is
it was before and after school people, but as you were talking, I also wanted to tack onto that. What about our usual volunteers, and especially like our mentors? If we're going all remote, will we still have availability of mentorship for that?
So I've met with Tom, and I think I shared this last week that there were a large, like 58, I want to say 58% of the mentors were willing to come back in person. But, you know, and there were many who were not willing, not comfortable doing that. So Tom was going to reach out to each person individually. And I think we will have to figure out what that looks like, because I don't know that we want to have a mentor in a private Zoom with the student. So we'll have to talk about what that might look like moving forward. We were hoping if we had in person that, we could, space people out and they could kind of give students a break from that being stuck in their room time. But yes, I will work with Tom on, he was already going to kind of reach out to them one at a time.
And I have one last question. I'm sorry, I don't want to drag things down, but this was something that we all were very interested in getting student voices heard last year before we had to go into shutdown. And I know we really want to keep working on that. And I was wondering if there's going to be any plans by the different building administrators, but also teachers and district administrators to reach out to students and have opportunities for kids to connect with the administrators, the principals, everybody, and have check-in sessions, or I don't know, office hours or something, just so that we can find out how the students are coping, not just from their classroom teachers, but from all of us at the district, and what things they want to tell us. Because I know that in the past semester I was hearing a lot of things from students about remote learning, and I know that they're eager to share their opinions about all of this with us. And so I would love to know that we're still keeping that channel open, and we're opening it wider for students now that we're permanently doing, well, not permanently, but you know what I mean, now that we're ensconced with remote learning.
Kim, you want to take that, or I can? I know we talked a lot about SEL last week, but do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
Oh, can you go ahead and repeat it?
The SEL question. So I think what you're asking is, Linda Gibbons presented last week that SEL component is going to be a huge part of what we're doing. You saw the middle school schedule. Their whole Wednesday schedule is devoted to SEL. Kim's working with the high school to try to figure out, SEL has not typically been a, front and center, I guess, SEL approach there. I know that was something that the high school had a plan. They started having some SEL conversations this past year, and that's something we want to continue. We're talking about, we've talked a lot about that morning message. We are asking administrators to engage and interact and check in, not just with staff, but with everybody. We're concerned about staff. I think we want some regular messaging going out and making sure that we're communicating. I'm concerned about self-care for our staff because this is going to be really, really hard. And some of our staff who are not able to come out and who don't come out in the community and aren't in person, who are at home and dealing with all of this on their own. We do want to make sure that we're reaching out to them for their self-care and for our students. I don't know if I shared this with the board last week, but I know I've shared it with the remote learning committee. We've heard from some of our students with special needs that we have some of our students who haven't left their homes since March and aren't leaving their room very much because of some of the special needs that they have. So And that makes me sad, but also it makes me know, like what you're saying, that we need to check in with them and we need to make sure that we're engaging them and finding spaces for them to be able to interact with students through this. So, and I'll let Kim add whatever she wants to add.
The check-in time, we know that that's something, and SEL has to be embedded all throughout. It can't just be something that we're going to do for compliance and check it's off our list and we're going to move on. And one thing is we've talked about with all of our PD and sharing with our administrators, and they're well aware, is that we don't always see visible signs when students have experienced trauma. And, you know, it comes in many shapes and forms, and it's not always seen even just with behavior. Behavior is not always, and discipline is not always a measurement of trauma. And so we just want to make sure that we provide supports, check-in opportunities, and again, giving, as you said, Anne, opportunities for our students to voice how they're feeling throughout this process. But we're looking at a lot of different things. Our teachers are really receptive. There's even apps that we can use, called Paradeck is one. That's a great tool so that we can get some feedback on what our students need.
I want to add a little bit to what Ann was talking about, though, because part of it is we were starting an effort a year ago to have student voice at the board level and student input into our decision making. And I know you're talking about SEL and check-in and that kind of stuff, but there's also, for instance, one of the emails we got this week was from Theo Johnson, and a high school student. And it's important that the students have a voice in informing us as board members, as adults, so that we understand what the student ramifications are to some of the decisions we make. And sometimes their input is valuable in formulating our decisions. And so without in-person school, that student voice gets dissipated, is a way to put it. And I think what one of the points that Ann was making was that we need some ability to get feedback from the students as to how things are working. I mean, this summer I heard a whole lot from high school students about how remote learning worked and how it didn't work. And that's valuable information for all of us to understand so that we can maybe tweak our approaches that will make them useful for the students from the student viewpoint.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
We can work, especially with the middle school and high school. I think that we definitely can work on trying to, we can post some questions in some of their discussion boards. And, there are a lot of ways that we're going to engage the students' interaction beyond a survey. So I think because surveys don't always give us, the information that we really want. It's more around the discussion. So yeah, I think we can set up some of those maybe through office hour times. And so Kim's making a note. I see her writing it down.
Even having small focus groups.
Yes. And I think once we get into this and try it and get some of these things up and going, we will want students telling us how they're receiving it or how it's working for them so we can tweak it.
I have three kind of minor but separate questions and not related to student leadership, which I certainly support. I just want to be clear, are the option of the off-campus learning sites that we talked about before are permanently on hold, right?
Yes, so we, with all the partners that we're going to work with us on that, our discussion has been if it's not safe to be at school every day, then we're not going to put students in those environments as well at this time. So I think we've moved forward with the intergovernmental agreements. We'll get those all ironed out. We'll still work out all the details, Peggy. So when we do return to in-person, we'll have a plan. But yes, if we're not able to have students in groups of 12 to 15 in our buildings, we're not going to put them together in the off-campus learning sites either at this time.
Okay. And then secondly, if parents have questions, I appreciate all the detail you're providing, but if parents read these and still have a question, do they contact you, Kim and Jennifer, or their building principal because now they're getting to be kind of really particular questions, very specialized questions. Who do they contact?
Yeah, I would say if there are questions that pertain particularly to their child's school or the schedule that the school's created, I would reach out. As we conducted new teacher orientation training this week, and as we share with our teachers too, that it's always helpful when the parents even contact the teachers first if there's a question directly about student learning in the classroom.
Okay, so once they know their class list and their teacher, it's fine to contact their teacher or the building principal if it's before they know.
Yes.
Yes.
And the final one is, oh, I'm sorry, go
I was
ahead.
just going to say, and I think what Kim was going to say, if there are comments or questions about the larger district plan, then, you know, they're welcome to continue to email me and Kim, which is what a lot of people have been doing right now. But I hear what you're saying is if there's specific things around timing of a schedule or something specific about band or chorus, those are things that should go through the building principals.
Okay, thank you. And I can tell that you've really taken to heart a lot of the questions that we've all been hearing. So thanks for that. And the third one is, I know we're investing a lot in Chromebooks and multiple Chromebooks for families, which I think is a very wise investment. But I wondered, since in many cases, one of the challenges at home is that is sort of noise. You know, if you have 2 or 3 kids, you know, working, or a parent and a kid working in a house, or other younger children just being young children, have we invested in headphones for families? I mean, bought those to go along. I know they're not very expensive, but boy, it'll make the difference in being able to do remote learning when you've got other noisy things going on in your house.
So good question, Peggy. We have not invested in those for every student yet. We were going to provide them in these computer spaces because students will be working on, all different content when they come. But yeah, that's actually a really good idea. We can look into that, and especially for our families that have multiple siblings. You're right. We're trying to give them more devices, but it'll be hard to space out in some instances if you have 2 or 3 students working in a smaller space at home.
Yeah, just might help them focus better.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
I have something to add or ask about. Since most students will not be on school district property, we still have school district policies that must be adhered to. Staff and students alike. So I hope everyone is kind of not forgetting that even as a student sitting at home or in your car or over at grandma's, accessing your device that you're going to be working on, that behaviors are monitored and paid attention to, and any type of consequences as if they were in the buildings.
Yeah. And we can monitor about
that.
And we can monitor what our students through our data dashboard. We can see what sites. We were able to do that in the spring, and we can still do that because all the Chromebooks are still managed through our USD system. We can see if students are going to sites that are inappropriate. Is that what you mean? Like if they're going to inappropriate sites and doing things with their Chromebooks?
That would end up encompassing,
sure,
policies that we do have. I need to have a better idea on how a virtual class would be. I'm making an assumption that it's like what we're doing here with the Zoom, where we can all see a grid of people that are on here live with us. And then I would guess the instructor has the capability at their end to mute everyone as well. So it would possibly help keep, we would love, this is a difficult time, and we would love for everybody to be mindful of everyone. But we don't want friction within like a classroom, which is now going to be on a screen of some sort for people. And just what would that look like?
Well, I think, go ahead, Kim.
Yeah, I was just going to say there's still expectations, you're right, for learning. There's still follow-up that teachers will be doing with families if students are not adhering to those rules. There's norms, expectations for behavior during that time, and that doesn't change. We're still in an environment of learning, and those same rules will still apply.
And Ruth Ann, we still have high expectations of our staff. In the spring, our staff were still held accountable for doing their jobs. And so I was still just as busy as ever last spring when we were home as I am when we're in school.
Okay, good deal.
I'll just leave it as that.
Yeah, I know it's also come up in some other districts about school dress code. That means don't show up to your virtual stuff.
Well,
your pajama tops.
Well, one thing that we have been talking about with some of the older students is that the ability to they don't have to show their faces during their Zoom. That's something we've talked about at the middle school. I don't know that we've had conversations at the high school about it yet, but it's come up at the middle school. And I don't want to speak for families, and I don't want to speak for specific kids, but I do think some of the reason there was some hesitancy in the spring to join some of those Zooms is, you know, like when you guys can see me, you can see everything in my office. If I turn my computer around, you can see my, you know, if I were in my bedroom, you can see my bed, my dresser, you know, and I think there was a little hesitancy for some students who may not want people to see inside their world in that way. So we have talked about this, especially, I think it's really a middle school thing. It might even be a high school thing a little bit, is to take that self-consciousness out of the equation, and we'll work with teachers and kind of give them some strategies and tools around this. But something that we have talked about is if students don't want to have their camera on, as long as they're participating and engaging in the conversation and being part, I mean, we do it as adults, that you can listen and participate and be involved and not have to have everyone see in your private space. So I don't know if Kim wants to add more to that, because I know you've been part of those conversations more than I have, but.
I would add too, Jennifer, that there are also situations where having your video on or off can help with connectivity depending on your internet connection and bandwidth at home. So sometimes turning your camera off helps with the connection.
That's true.
I think it's important for us to make sure that we're focusing on trying to get as many kids to these sessions as possible, and to not create any additional unnecessary, barriers that is going to make a kid say, well, I don't want to attend today because they want me to have my camera on. I've got to dress a certain way. I mean, we don't require this on a regular school day at school. Kids wear pajamas all the time. So, we really need to think about creative ways to make sure kids are attending, because the goal is to get them educated and really to not focus on the little things that really right now don't really matter. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Some things just don't matter. We need them there, and we need to do whatever we can do to get them there.
You're exactly right, Tori. And we shared that with our new teachers. We even, there's a graphic that we discovered, do's and don'ts. And yeah, that really doesn't need to be our focus with what they're wearing, but how can they show that they're engaged? And it can be with their responses in chats, or their give a thumbs up. Also doing some polls that you can do that they can respond to that are linked to other sites. So we can definitely measure their engagement, not just by how they're staring at the computer, but how they're responding to the teacher.
Other questions? I know we threw a lot of information at you again, but I appreciate Peggy noting that. I think we really took most of the questions and things that you guys have been sending us, things that parents have been sending us, emails I've gotten, Kim has gotten, and really tried to group them in a thoughtful way to make sure that we were putting together a plan. And again, we have not thought of every single thing. And I'm sure we'll get some emails and some responses back. What about this and what about that and what about? And we will figure it out together. That's how we're going to get through this. But I think we've at least given people enough information where we can start setting up meetings, and we can get teachers back next week. We're sharing the opening day schedule. I've got an email that I'm ready to hit send on about that. We're going to be doing that through Zoom. So this year is going to be a year like no other we've ever had in terms of how differently we're going to have to do things. And it's just causing all of us to be more flexible and understanding and patient with one another. But, as we said to the new teachers, we're a band of better together for a reason, and we'll get through this. And that's the way we'll do it, is to do it together. So we appreciate everybody understanding that if we haven't thought of something, if you bring it to our attention, then we will try to figure it out. So
Just 2 more quick questions.
yes.
One is, I really like the idea that this isn't like a set plan. I mean, we're learning as we go. But to that end, I'm assuming there'll be building level and at district level, evaluations of how things are going as this goes along on these staff meetings, et cetera, so we can get feedback from parents and teachers about what is working well, what isn't working well.
Yes.
And the second thing is our social emotional support folks, the SEAs, the SIs, clinical professionals. What's their role going to look like in a remote learning environment?
Yeah, their support is still really important. So, for example, our teachers connecting with their students and helping with this transition. We know that there's going to be a transitionary period, and we're going to have to support their students with managing their time and adjusting, because this again is looking much different than it even did in the spring. We're also expecting, when we're not getting students that are connecting, we need to make every attempt and exhaust every measure to make sure that they have access to everything they need, seeing why they are not connecting. And so the support individuals that you mentioned are definitely going to have to help in that process, because we need to do welfare checks on students and follow up if we're not hearing from them, to make sure that they're safe, or again that there's not any resources that are that they are missing so that they can connect.
And I do want to add, the student engagement advocates will be critical for the attendance piece. The majority, the TAOP people, their main role is attendance. And so the having them checking in and reaching out and making phone calls will just be another level and layer of our ability to engage with people. They have a component, a small group component to the grant and to their work. So we expect that they will still set up their own office hours and their own kind of meet and greets with students and check in on them, and have some of those small group connections continue even virtually. I'll let Todd maybe talk about the clinical professionals a little bit.
Sure. Yes, our social workers and clinical professionals will have individual and groups of students that they have worked with in the past that will be also identified by administration and teachers. And the expectation is they will be reaching out and connecting with those kids in a variety of ways, through phone calls, through Zoom meetings, through a variety of virtual ways, to continue to engage them and help meet their socio-emotional SEL needs.
Thank you.
Sure.
Can I add to that in terms of crisis intervention, for lack of a better way? This whole thing has been tough on the mental health of, doesn't matter how old you are, on everybody. And so is there a way for those support staff to be accessible to the kids? Can the kids initiate the phone call if it's needed? And is there a district phone number, district resources, so that it isn't always up to the adult to figure out what's going on in the kid's mind? But if the kid understands they need some crisis intervention, is there a way for that to happen? I know when school's in session, they can go down the hall and knock on the door and get into the office. What's up? What's working? What is your plan for having that work?
Well, that's a good idea. I like an email or a phone number we have that for staff for self-care, that they can reach out if they're in crisis or need support, we should set something up like that for students. I know our social workers and clinical professionals and people like that are wrapping around those students as much as we can. I know Linda Gibbons talked about that last week a little bit around the mental health and the SEL and that multi-tier system of support. Is we know who some of the kids are in the springtime who struggled. And so our teams know who some of those students are. So I'm hoping our social workers, clinical professionals, all those people have those students on their radars right away and check in with them and engage them in this. And again, they struggled in the spring, they may struggle again in the fall right now. So we're just gonna have to check in with them right away. And
I would say, Jennifer, probably would also make sense for us to communicate with our building administrators as they're sending communications out to families on ways to, how to connect back up with the school if they have mental health or socio-emotional adjustment kind of concerns for their kids as well.
Yeah.
Like an EAP program for students.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have that for staff, right? Yes, you're right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Can we just revisit real quick the synchronous learning? It just is really on my mind about some of the kids that are just not going to be able to do that time block, and thinking about the fact that we know that some of these kids are now about to become caretakers. And I know we're often putting on the screen, that you guys really made a good effort to make sure that, we broke up the times for kids in elementary versus middle school and high school. But we know that we're going to have kids that are, caretakers to kids under 5 who are not in school, who don't have things that are going to occupy their day. And so I want to make sure that, I know we have the requirements of the 2.5 hours per day, and that's not something that we really can get around. But how are we going to be able to work with those kids who simply, for example, a high school student who simply is not going to be able to log in every day from 10:30 to 1 to do the synchronous learning? And I know you talked about having some other options, but it kind of sounds like they need to be on during their class time, but then the rest of the time is more so check-ins and doing homework and stuff like that. That would be fine for a kid that doesn't necessarily need to be, that needs to get work done in the evening. But what about the blocks, and what about those kids that just simply aren't going to be able to do that every day?
You're exactly right. We have families that have their kids in daycare and can't be with their child to assist. And so one option is recording it to view later, and even with younger children, parents can help later. Also the same with our secondary. You can look at other options with discussion boards. The key with all of this is interaction with the teacher and feedback from the teacher to the student, so that students have feedback on their level of understanding. And so that's what's really, really key. And we understand that there's a lot of different situations, and we'll just have to work through that together. But there are some options that we can do there when individuals cannot connect from that certain window of time.
Okay, just want to make sure that, there's not any type of penalties for a child who just simply, it's not that they don't want to be there, it's just that it's just not possible for them, that those kids are not going to suffer because they can't attend synchronous class time, and that they're still going to be able to get that piece of the education, just like the students who can attend the synchronous, that they will still get, what they need to be able to learn. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, well, was there anything else you wanted to say, Jennifer, about anything else?
No, I think at this point, and I'm going to turn it back over to you guys. And I know we have some resolutions to talk about related to the plan and the face coverings, but I still want to keep that face covering policy here. I don't, I think it's something we need to adopt, and not just for students, but for our staff. and anybody who's coming in our buildings, knowing that we have a policy around face coverings is going to be really important.
Okay. Well, with that said, we'll just move into those action items. Before I take votes on them, though, I just thank you again, everybody, for all of this work. And in the space of 1 week, how we've had to kind of change course, but we've rolled with it. And like you said earlier, you know, this was not for nothing. It sounds to me like this is work that is going to be useful to us no matter what stage we're at. And it's done a lot. It looked to me like we did a lot of soul searching and deep diving into what our district does for our students and what we're doing well and what we can do better. So in that sense, I think it's just been really healthy for us to do this. So thank you to you and all of your committees for all the work you've done this summer. Okay, move on to action items now. And the first one is actually nothing to do with COVID. It is the resolution for the authorizing demolition and removal of 112 West of Iowa Street in Urbana. And this was up to Carol. So Carol, do you have anything to add?
Nope, this is just one of our properties over on Iowa that we have slated for demolition and would like to get moving on that. So thought we'd get board approval since the tenants moved out now.
This is actually the last property along Iowa Street to be taken care of. I move approval of the administrative recommendation.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Member Carter?
She's muted.
No, she's not. You're okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Member Demmett?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Hall?
Yes, motion passes. 8.2. Back again to the reopening plan. This is the resolution now to vote to approve the school district's 2021 reopening plan as was just presented. Do I have a motion?
I move acceptance of that. Peggy.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, moved and seconded. Roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Can we do discussion?
Did we want to have discussion?
Absolutely. I'm sorry. I kind of assumed that we had done that before, but you're right. Let's. Any last other questions or discussions before we completely vote?
Oh, I do. So I just want to clarify. I want it to be clarified that this is the new proposal that we're voting on for the first quarter remote. And I did have a question about the point of revisiting. And so obviously we're saying first quarter. At what point are we going to have the discussion about whether or not it's appropriate to continue into second quarter? I think people will have that as a question.
Sure.
And thought that we would just kind of clarify that now if we know.
So I think the shield testing is going to be really important, and I'm hoping by October 16th that we have a plan and that's all been figured out, the systems for that. So I think that is a number one for us too, and that the positive cases have decreased. You know, I know our staff and I know a lot of our parents are asking us for the 14 no positive cases in our county before we return. I just don't know when we would get to that point, Tori, and I know it won't be by October 16th. I know that. So I think we'll just have to monitor the numbers. Right, like you said, right now, like we've said, our county was doing an amazing job keeping those numbers down. And so I don't know what the magic number is. I just know I don't know that we can use the 14 days no new cases as our benchmark, because that might mean we don't come back to school at all this year. So I think we just have to, I feel like I've established a nice connection with Julie Pride at Public Health, and you know, I'm going to continue to work with her and take guidance from the professionals on when it would be a safe time and what is happening in our county. Before I'm not a scientist, so I'm not going to make that call. But I do know that we do have to be thoughtful around, can we give up a whole year of instruction if we say, you know, the 14 no new cases? I don't know when we would get to that point.
So as far as though the actual, I'm asking more so on the actual discussion with that come
Oh,
October 6th board meeting.
oh, I thought you meant you wanted me to say
Yeah,
what the
sorry, I
numbers
didn't
would be.
clarify that.
Okay.
I didn't want to cut you off, but you know, so
Sorry.
October 6th, would that be a day that parents could expect that?
Absolutely, yes.
I
I wasn't understanding your question, so yes. I thought you were looking for a number.
would think that the 6th is, you know, just a week and a couple of days before a week and a day before the 14th. And that may not give
Enough time.
teachers and everybody enough time. I would think that we should make that kind of decision at our September business meeting.
September
15th.
15th. Okay.
Yep.
I just wanted to kind of have some kind of something out there so that
Sure.
can say, okay, this is when they're going to be presenting what their recommendation is, so that I can, you know, everybody's not watching every meeting, so that way
Sure.
I have an idea.
And John, I think we have to also remember how quickly things change for us. You know, September 15th is, you know, I'm a whole month in advance of October 16th. So, you
And
know,
I think that's too early.
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to suggest that maybe if we're going to make a change, that change be thought about and made on September 29th.
Mhm.
I think that we should be able to inform our public by the 29th, which gives everybody 2 weeks,
Mhm.
at least 2 weeks if we're going to make a change. If we're not going to make a change, then, well, I guess that's a decision as well. But
Right.
I think we have to give our staff an opportunity to make adjustments as well.
Mhm.
I'm so proud of our teachers if they're able to pivot. Just in the last week, they've had to pivot, and we're potentially asking them to pivot again on a 5-day notice. I think that's too quick.
And we will need time. You know, Kim has, I don't want to say the last number I remember is about 450 maybe of all remote learning requests. And are we up to about that number now?
I would say we're probably at about 600. We're still
600
entering.
So that's 600 students that we would have to put into some kind of, you know, if the decision were to return. I don't know where we'll be in September or October at all. So we will need some time to make that transition, and it won't be something we'll be able to do in a week or even 2 weeks. So yeah, I just wanted to say that out loud as well.
Yeah, we'll need to continue to monitor all the trend data and look at our staffing numbers as well.
So maybe the 15th is the correct time from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This is something very similar that's happened in the school district where one of my grandchildren is attending. The middle of last week in their school district was the last day for parents to sign up for remote learning. It came back by the end of the day that 40% of the population wanted remote learning, which threw the district into a tizzy because they had not planned on 60% to be in the buildings. So yesterday was supposed to be the first day of school. This coming Thursday will be, while they are redoing things in the building. So it's going to have to happen on the fly. I mean, day to day, we're working on this on the fly.
And the rules change on us day to day too, Ruth Ann. That's the other part. So I think we not only are things changing in our region, but you know, the rules and the requirements change as well. So yeah, so I think we're just all going to have to be really thoughtful and really monitoring things and staying in connection and talking about this. And you guys are great at sharing things from your constituents with us. So I think that's important too. So
one other thing I want to get clear is we are still with our first day of starting. That has not changed.
August 24th.
August 24th. Everybody needs to know that August 24th through now October 16th is strictly remote learning. So it gets out there several times and correctly. I'm going to tell you right now, when we get to vote, I'm going to be abstaining. Just so it's not going to come as too big of a surprise. I can't do this. I can't vote this up and I can't vote this down. I'm too far on, I'm just too much on the fence. It's not saying that I don't care about my district. I do. And I don't know. I don't know. And I feel a lot more comfortable just abstaining from this.
I just want to reiterate or support the statement you made, Jennifer, about the request we've heard from several about using the metric, no new COVID cases in the school community for 14 days, which I agree with you is effectively a mandate for not coming back to school at all, or at least not a very, very, very long time. And more reasonable metrics for returning to school are the ones that both national teacher unions have called for. Both the NEA and AFT have called for using low community positivity and transmission rates and adherence to the CDC guidance, which looks at, what you just mentioned, positivity rates, hospitalizations, new COVID cases. I mean, I'm not sure where the no new cases for 14 days came from, but it certainly didn't come from either the national unions or any other public health guidance that I've read about. So I'm glad to know you feel the same way, because we want to come back at some point when public health conditions warrant. We don't want to set up an impossible metric that would prevent us from coming back ever.
Yes, I agree with that.
Any other discussion? Anything we missed out? Okay, sorry for rushing you. I apologize for that. I will return. We did have a motion on the floor from John, and we had it seconded, I believe, by Tori. So, do we feel good to proceed with the vote now?
I don't think
it was Peggy and Tori.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, John. It was Peggy and Tori. Forgive me. Yes. Are we good to proceed? Do you think we feel like we're in a good place to take the vote? Okay. We have a movement and a second, so now we need a roll call, please, Ruth Ann.
Member Carter? I'm not hearing her.
No.
She's not muted. So.
Member Carter?
She's
I'm
saying
not
yes.
Okay, she's saying yes. Okay, there we go. Member Demet?
yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher abstains. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Hall?
Yes, motion passes to go to all remote learning until October 16th. Thank you, everyone. And thank you again to the administrators for the recommendation. Next up, the last action item on the agenda is 8.3 tonight, which is the approval of the new board policy regarding face coverings. Is there any clarification that's needed? Jennifer, would you like to reiterate again and have some discussion with everybody?
Yeah, this was, you guys have had this now for a little time, and I haven't received any questions, but it was actually prepared by our attorneys. We will, if you approve it, we'll present it to press and it will become one of our official board policies while the language says while we're under this pandemic.
So moved.
Okay, moved and seconded?
Second.
Do we have a second? Okay. Now we need a roll call, please.
Member Carter?
Yes.
There we go. Member Demet?
Yes.
Member Patton?
Yes.
Member Pulaski?
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes. Vice President Exum?
Yes.
And President Hall?
Yes, motion passes. Okay, well, we do not have any other items on the agenda for the open portion of our session tonight. So with that said, I need a movement I propose we go to a 5-minute recess actually and reconvene in closed session. I know several of us need to get up and move around. So again, this is a executive session to discuss personnel issues. Do I have a motion to recess for 5 minutes?
I think we
So moved.
I think we still have to read the whole thing though.
Okay, I'll do that. Absolutely. I was asking myself in my head if I should. All right. So I propose we recess 5 minutes and re-adjourn in closed session for the purpose of the appointment, employment, reconvene. Thank you, John. Thank you. We will reconvene in closed session for the purpose of appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district or legal counsel for the district, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. Do I have a motion to go into recess?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Member Carter,
Yes.
Member Demmett,
Yes.
Member Patton,
Yes.
Member Pulaski,
Yes.
Member Fisher votes yes, Vice President Exum,
Yes.
and President Hall.
Yes, and we will be in recess now for about 5 minutes. So thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Jason. Jason? Thank you very much.
We should remind everybody that there'll be no action following that.
Oh, yeah. Oh, is it too late to do that? I just paused it. Okay, there'll be no action. There'll be no action after the exec session.